Thank you very much. So over the month period, we credentialed 2 more people, bringing our total credential to 64 members of the delegation here this weekend. Can you please click vote proportions. That brings our majority to 33, our 2/3 to 43, and our 3/4 to 48 votes. Thank you very much. If I have to approve the updated credentialing report. Second site, any debate discussions? All in favor? All opposed? Credentialing report has been approved. Thank you very much. Okay, let's go ahead and move back into, as I was starting with the amendments, if we have any other additional amendments to bylaw that have been passed from the floor. If not, we will go ahead and move into platform. You may have somebody, maybe. Okay. Platform. No, this is for any additional amendments to the bylaws first. I'm just making sure that we don't have any more before we close that portion of business and move on. All right, seeing none. Thank you very much. Now we're going to go ahead and bring up our governance chair again to go ahead and open up the platform report and amendments. Hello again, everyone. Okay. So the third report that the governance committee has spent the past year working on for you all is our platform committee report. So I'm now going to go through and review some of the preamble on that report. As per the LPPA bylaws, the governance committee is responsible for creating a bylaws report for the delegates at our annual 5-year convention. Such report must contain what changes we are recommending, member submitted platform amendments, and here we go. But yeah, recommending member submitted platform amendments and reasonings why member submitted amendments were or were not recommended. This report is due by February 1st of the year of the convention. So this platform committee report is going to consist of 2 amendments. The first amendment of the report is a minor language change to the statement of principles. It is meant to improve readability. This amendment, it changes 1 word, you'll see it pretty much. And this amendment would require a 3/4 vote at the state convention for this to pass. The second amendment is going to be a major reorganization of the platform. There has been an addition of some planks, rewarding of other planks. And the platform planks were reorganized in order to create a better flow of ideas. We start from basic principles and go forward out, creating basically more and more complex and specific planks. So we start out very broad with generic sort of first principles planks, and then we get more and more specific in those platform planks. Throughout the reorganization, there are also comments when the plank pieces were split apart. Unfortunately, we can't see it in this doc, as that was sort of a Google Doc specific thing, which was shared around. As well, it is, it's not every right, it's a reorganization. So you can see basically the red lining and the green lining to see what text is new and what text is original, though a lot of the order of things has been changed. So some of the big highlights of the reorganization is that there is a section titled Libertarian Principles, which was added to outline first principles, and then sort of building blocks to reference for the rest of the platform. Additionally, we added a section at the end titled Pennsylvania Issues in order to add planks specific to PA topics. So we had a couple of PA specific planks in the platform. We relocated them to this section and added a couple more specific PA specific planks. This is essentially being presented as one major amendment due to the nature of reorganizing so much. And so this is one amendment which requires a 2/3 vote to be adopted. And of course, the following pages are going to be a markup of that amendment as well. I also included, since it was such a major reorganization, I wanted to include a final document for everyone to sort of be able to look through as if it were fully adopted. As well, I want to add there were no member submitted platform amendments, and so we don't have any of those to review. Thank you. So, that being the specifics, this is our first amendment, which is, of course, just this change here. We're going to strike equal and add the green words to do the same. This is a minor change to the statement of principles and would require a 3/4 vote to adopt, and this is the first item of our platform report.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Okay. So we do have a motion on the floor for the change that we see above here, striking out equal and then adding to do the same. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Do we have any objection or debate, discussion?
Yeah, I rise to speak in opposition to this motion. I'm not really seeing that as a group. I think the word equal is worthless. And for not being it conveys the idea that individuals have equal rights. The changed version to me sounds like it's a contest between individuals that not exercise the most rights. So I would have not with the motion.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak? Okay. Hearing none, let's go ahead and move to a vote. All in favor of this amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Don't
think, I don't think that passes. Let's go ahead and do a standing vote. Okay, all in favor of this amendment, please stand. Thank you. And go ahead and see, and all opposed.
We don't need to know that number.
That amendment fails.
Because they changed the platform.
Thank you. Mr. Smith? This is going to be our, yeah, go ahead.
All right, this one is much less easily digestible. It's essentially one very long amendment to reorganize the platform. It's a couple of pages long. I hope most of you guys have reviewed it already. It's kind of too much to go through point by point unless everyone wants to. So,
Okay. So. All right, so I do have a motion on the floor for the reorganization of this. Do I have a second? Thank you.
I move to divide. It's my opinion that, if we divide this, go by the content title that are highlighted. But I'm also a student from the governance committee that are made to divide. And then I don't have a specific order of how I would take them up. I think the governance committee would pick up the most important one first because there's a lot.
Okay. We have a motion to divide.
That's not, I already know.
Mr. Pizzacco, might it be better instead of motioning to divide, a motion to consider by seriatim, which would have us go consider each section by section, and then we would vote on the entire thing in entirety. We divided, it wouldn't make as much sense because as we got through each part, we would essentially be adopting just one section at a time, and we could end up with
Friendly change to my motion on by that.
okay. And the
Okay.
No, I think that's the chair's instruction as well, and unrelated, which I think are demandable, visible on the demand.
Thank you. All right, so we will divide by seriatim.
not divided, we're gonna review them by
By seriatim.
I already.
section by section.
Section by section. So there are 4 sections. So we'll go ahead and get started with this. Just go, one go from top down, please.
Thank you. So if we're gonna review by seriatim, I think what makes the most sense is to start from the first section and go down, because it's, the first section is the principles voting block that we go off of.
Point of information, what are we calling sections? Because
So, sections, so if you notice each plank is numbered, blank, point, blank. So section would be, the 1 point something would all be a section, and then 2 point.
all the 1 points.
Mhm. If we wanted to
and
as
all
well,
the 2 points.
The 2 points are further divided into like headers. We could also go by header 2 as well. And that would be, you can just request that. There's no need for a motion.
Well, that was my, yeah, that was my intention to go by each header.
Okay.
Instead of 4 sections, it looks to me to.
Okay. The 4 main sections and then the second section has a bunch of subpoints. So we will go
Yeah,
through that.
my intention here is, I'm sure there's stuff that you have that's more important and stuff that's less important. I don't want to see everything fail as one vote. Because somebody doesn't like this section, or somebody doesn't like that section. So I leave that up to the governance committee to present. You know, whatever. As far as I'm concerned, I don't know how, but I think.
Okay, let's do this. Okay. So would it be agreeable to everybody if we go through section by section with the exception of section 2, which we go header by header? Would that be agreeable to everybody?
Yes.
Okay, all right, excellent. So let's go. And I think that we've been working very well together today. And our points have been valid and brief. So I do believe that we should be able to get through all of this. We are a little bit of a schedule, so we can take our time to make sure we do this right. So we'll start at the top at 1 and we go down.
Point of information, Mr. Chair, as we review this section by section, the final vote threshold on the report is 2/3. Is each section that we review individually 2/3 or just the majority?
Should be 2/3.
You don't adopt anything until the adoption of the whole thing. The amendments to each one are.
All right, thank you. So the amendments to each one would be a majority, and then once that's done, we would adopt the entire document at a 2/3 majority. Okay, thank you.
And so to add on that, it's not gonna be a similar like motion to divide where we're gonna vote down certain things. If there is something we go over and you don't want it, you would want a motion to amend to get rid of that. So then when we do the final approval, it's not there. Okay, so I guess let's start reviewing. We're gonna start with the first section here, which is titled Libertarian Principles. We have a blank 1.1 self-ownership, 2.2 property rights, 1.3 not aggressive. Do you guys want me to, should I read?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so we're gonna read the entire platform today, guys, okay.
Right, that's what we're about.
Section 1.1 is self-ownership. Every person has the exclusive control over their physical body. It is inalienable property which can only be rightfully owned by the person whose body it is. A person who does not own their own body completely is the slave of another to some degree. Plain 1.2, property rights. Ownership of external scarce resources is determined in accordance with the principles of homesteading, contractual title transfer, and restitution to compensate victims of property rights violations. Property owners have the right to have and use their property as long as they do not violate the rights of others. Blank 1.3, non-aggression principle. Aggression is the initiation of force or the threat thereof against or the uncontested use of another person's property, including fraudulent takings of property. All acts of aggression are illegitimate and unjust, whether committed by private actors or the state. Use of force is legitimate as defense against / retaliation for aggression. Blank 1.4, individualism. The individual person is the basis for all rights, agency, thought, and action. Blank 1.5, voluntary interaction. Humans are social creatures who identify with and organize themselves into groups. People interact with one another either voluntarily or forcefully. Forceful interaction is either aggression or in response to aggression. Voluntary interaction is a necessary foundation for a peaceful society, peaceful civilized society. Blank 1.6, the state. The state is an organization which attempts to forcefully maintain a monopoly on violence and decision-making in society. The state is the most dangerous aggressor in society. Stricken from this section was the original platform blank 1.1. No individual business, organization, business, or government agency may engage in fraud, initiate force, or make a credible threat of force against any other individual, organization, business, or government. Individuals must be free to make choices for themselves, but must accept responsibility for the consequences of the choices they make. The reason this plank is crossed out is because we felt the first 6 planks that come before it more than enough compensate for its lack. when we first read the platform and we read this first plank, we said, okay, this first plank here is trying to set out those broad-based principles like we try to do in the first section here. And so we felt that we were cutting out 1.1, not because it was bad or anything was wrong with it, but because we were elaborating on it further and going into greater detail with the whole of section 1. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. I will now open it up for some debate.
I move to amend the proposal. I think that's important, is that correct? Okay, so I move to strike the whole of section 1.1, self-ownership. Every person has exclusive control over their physical body. It is an inalienable right, inalienable property, which cannot be rightfully owned by the person whose body it is. A person who does not own their body completely is a slave to another to some degree. I think this is making an unnecessary judgment about the philosophy of private property and specifically about who owns who. Can I sell myself and sell what's part of me as to someone else? First of all, a bigger problem with voluntary slavery, but like, what about organ markets as well? Can we have organ markets according to this principle? Like what a lot is being prohibited by this plank, this section. And I think it's kind of a reckless favoring of one brand of libertarianism over another. So I move to strike this entire subsection.
Thank you. Do you mind turning down the main volume just a hair? Thank you. We're getting a little feedback on both ends there. All right, that's better. Thank you. All right, we do have a motion to amend to strike 1.1. Do I have a second?
Sorry.
Thank you. We do have a second. Do we have debate on the amendment for 1.1?
Luke Genzer, Capital Area, also on the governance committee. The reason why we included self-ownership is because that is foundationally the, from my understanding, and I believe a widespread understanding, the ultimate foundation of libertarian philosophy. It comes down to property rights, and the most fundamental property right is self-ownership in yourself. I think taking that out is taking out the most core component. As far as organ markets go, if you decide to trade away part of yourself in that case, then I don't think that is in conflict with the idea that ultimately you own your body if you want to remove part of it. I'm sorry, I was not ready for an organ markets discussion.
Understand. All right, anybody else for amendment 1.1?
Mr. Chair, Roy Minette in Lancaster County. I would like to object to consideration of that entire section that's titled Libertarian Principles. And this is like, they are not blanks. Blanks are defined in our bylaw as implementations of the statement of principle. These are by their very title principles. So they belong as amendments to the statement of principles. So at the very least, they need reporters approval. But I don't think they qualify as being listed as clients.
Thank you.
I have an amendment that I would suggest, but it largely depends on whether or not Ben's amendment goes through.
Okay, so then let's go ahead and hold off on that, as that would not be worth quite yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think self-ownership has been pretty foundational. If someone hasn't been in the party, this has been something I've just believed in and existed with. And so if we remove this from its entirety, I think it will drastically change the meaning of what is a libertarian. And I think the issue of organ markets is solved by just defining what is and isn't your body. Once it is removed from your physical body, it is no longer your body anymore. And if you choose to separate it and sell it, then it is something different.
Thank you.
Regarding the body, and this is referring to every person has exclusive control over their physical body, and it is inalienable, meaning it cannot be taken away and or given away. Property which can be only rightfully owned by the person whose body it is. So even your organs are not inalienable under this language. And I would contest the entire premise of self-ownership in that, according to the homesteading principle, God owns every one of us. So the Christian libertarians are screwed in this kind of scenario. So God owns every one of us according to homesteading. So self-ownership doesn't apply to anyone, really. It's our property rights are ceded to us by God. We're stewards of God's property. And I think that is perfectly consistent with libertarians. Yeah. So yeah, the 1.1, yeah, strike it all.
This is more than I expected from you. Not yet. We still have plenty of time for that.
Okay, no worries. I'm standing in opposition to this amendment, striking self-ownership, which is literally section 1.1 of not only these bylaws, but the national bylaws with the same title, self-ownership, different wording, is absolutely ridiculous and completely anti-libertarian. The principle of self-ownership has been a core of this party and of this movement since its inception. We can't strike self-ownership. Now, if we want to reword it, that's a different conversation. But striking self-ownership is absolutely absurd. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have anything to add to that. I would just, to respond to the idea that, you know, God owns, all of us. I'm not going to object to that. I would say, as far as human political philosophy goes, that is in regards to different people regarding each other. Whether if God owns all of us, that still means that we on this mortal plane own ourselves in respect to everyone else.
Thank you. Alison.
Yeah, so I have to respect like the technical and philosophic levels that this is operating at from Ben. And mad respect for that, I'm not operating at this level of this. However, I think libertarians have a history of getting in their own way. And I don't think we should make the perfect the enemy. This is basic and it should just, I would be against amending it with respect.
Okay, I'll get my own way eventually.
Peter Krawchuk, Montgomery County. I read that and it screams pro-choice. I don't know if you want to do that. Could alienate a lot of people. Own your own body, control your own physical body. I think that alienates the pro-lifers in the crowd. Beyond option.
As a pro-lifer,
Saying it screams. Also, it's a bit inflammatory, slaying one another. I don't know if we want to be that inflammatory. In my opinion, I would speak against, I would get rid of it entirely. I mean, I speak against one by one.
Thank you.
Respectfully. What's the feeling?
I go with
It's not qualified as clients and therefore we really cannot consider them clients.
Okay. I am going to rule that they are planks. Thank you. You can feel free to reject my ruling. It's fine.
Jean Strauss, Allegheny County. I understand that some people say that this could be used as pro-choice. But it also could be argued that a baby inside you is a separate person.
Yes.
Do we have any further debate regarding the amendment to strike 1.1? Hearing none, we will go ahead and move to a vote to strike 1.1. All in favor of striking 1.1 self-ownership, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yes.
Fails. Thank you.
So I would vote to amend the last sentence here, instead of saying a person who does not own their body, which is a singular with a plural pronoun. Either we say people who do not own their bodies completely are the slaves of others to some degree, or we say a person who does not own his or her body. And that would keep in line with our previous statement of his or her pronouns.
Thank you. You have an amendment. Do you mind writing that up for the secretary or coming over here and making sure that he gets the language correct?
You gotta choose one. Yeah.
Yes, let's go ahead and choose one. Once you can wander over here and just work that out momentarily.
Mine's a different amendment.
That's fine.
Like the way they break things.
That's.
Technicalities. I don't know if they meant that. Did somebody? He's writing it.
While we're waiting, did everybody have a good time with the trainings this afternoon? Thank you to everybody who presented today. That was incredible. I think that was very valuable information that a lot of our members were ready to get. Mr. Secretary, we good there?
Mr. Chair, while we're waiting.
Yes, sir.
May I make a point?
You can make a point of information.
All right. In my view, platform should be written to communicate our party and what it stands for and its principles to non-libertarians. We're making this pretty wonky as though we're writing a platform for us libertarians. I submit that that's not what we should be doing. If I look down there at the blank that's proposed to be deleted, that's nice, clear, understandable for non-libertarians. I don't think these blanks meet that criterion at all.
Thank you.
So, I'd like to respond to that. So myself and Reese were the Luganzer capital area. Cumberland County. Myself and Reese were the ones who spent the most time on this reorganization and edit. So the idea that we were going for was to start with the foundational building blocks. And then we build it out from there. We haven't even gotten to the rest of the sections yet. Most of the platform as it previously existed is still, I believe it is still in place. It's just added on to the lot. The idea was that it may be quick, but it's not really like deep and thorough. And libertarianism as political philosophy is something that is very built out, starting with self-ownership and property rights and going from there. And so the idea was that we want to make sure it might be a little wonky, but we want to make sure that it clearly clarifies, like, this is where we're coming from. This is what we think. This is what we believe. This is our foundation. And we derive our understandings and opinions on the following issues from our principles, statement of principles as well. And so that's why we started with this, to make it a very clear, elaborate, and thorough foundation.
Thank you. So Jennifer, stay where you're at. I think we have our amendment ready to go, correct? Mr. Secretary, we good? We good to proceed with the amendment? Okay, we do have the amendment as written up here. The last line is a person who does not own their, his or her body.
That is, freaking.
Okay, does not own. Got it. Perfect. A person who does not own her or his body completely is the slave of another to some degree. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Now we're going to go ahead and go to, I have some hands, I see some people up. We're going to go to debate on this amendment. So if you have a debate on this amendment, go ahead and step forward, please. Go ahead, Mr. Rhino.
I was gonna ask the clarification of why the word there would be switched to her or his, when there should also just cover it in itself. It seems like it'd be preferential to people that have ideologies of completely excluding trans people in general. And so regardless of what your position is on it, deciding to use language that automatically excludes them would be the same as making a decision to one that includes them preferentially. And I think that is a position we shouldn't have taken.
Thank you. I'll let the gentleman who made the amendment speak to that. Okay, real quick, while we're doing this, if you are not speaking on this amendment, please have a seat so that way I can see who's in line. I can direct some of the traffic that way. Mr. Thomas.
The overwhelming majority of people do not use the singular their pronoun to refer to themselves. So if his or her excludes that tiny body of people who refer to themselves as them, then there would exclude the almost the far greater body of people who use his or her pronouns. So if we're talking about exclusionary here, then his or her is going to be far more inclusive than there.
Thank you. Yeah. So actually, Mr. Thomas's comments actually have me questioning a little bit here. I just wanted to point out to the delegation, if there are concerns that this section is coming across as a little bit like pro-choicey in its tone or whatever, the wording that we have on the screen right now is her or his body, which I think enhances that instead of, you know, taking a more objective kind of stance. And so although I think that there is maybe a little bit having a shortcoming, but when Mr. Thomas was speaking, he said his or her. So my question would be, was the intent for it to be as reported on the screen, her or his, or should it be his or her, or should we consider it there? So everybody who is new to libertarianism, welcome.
I agree. Kansas way more. Johannes are getting on the previous.
As far as his or her, we said so. Actually, the concerns that this could be exclusionary. I think that I'm more sensitive at the moment that the broader conversation going on nationally that is, I think rightfully attempting to reject what is fundamentally sexual Marxism. And we appeal to their. I think they're sending in with the most common his or her, his or her, it doesn't matter what they, is gonna be the more neutral. That we're conveying that we're not playing the game of cultural Marxism. But I think we need to eradicate that perception because hearing is very neutral on it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Zach.
So, as usual, this might not be the appropriate time for this, but I move to strike this whole section and remain 1.1 exactly how it was. And it's just, this room is proof of why. We expect all our candidates, our committees, our members to follow these platforms. And then why 1.1, the original 1.1 has encompassed everything in a semi-vague manner, and to describe everything down to such detail is going to alienate us from people trying to run their libertarian names and participate in the Libertarian Party.
Thank you. At this point in time, that actually would be out of order. This is a weird little amendment, but keep.
I was announcing my intentions.
Yes.
Jean Strauss, Allegheny County. I think that we could just make them all plural. People who do not own their bodies completely are the slaves of others.
Are you,
And I would be okay with that switch.
are you moving to amend the amendment?
What if someone identifies as a
Yeah.
cat?
Okay, so.
Yeah.
So what would that? I mean, no, I mean, I'm just thinking what that would look like. So you're making amendments to make everything standardized
That's fine.
throughout this section. Correct? Yes, throughout the place. Okay. So there's a motion to amend the amendment to make all the language plural. Do I have a second? Okay, do we have any debate regarding this particular amendment?
Yeah, I'm gonna object to it because we're party the values of individualism, so I think we should address the person asking. Throughout the platform, speaking. I just thought it was unfortunate, the original for the French.
Swing back around.
Swing back around, okay, so we bring up the first part, right? Again, I love the technical grammar, on base, perfect is the enemy of good. How it was written has the level of conviction that I think when we overcomplicate it, we lose our assertiveness as a party. So I would stick to a person because look at self-ownership, right? Everything is about the individuals, not plural. And then the first phrase, I don't think we need to overanalyze it to such an extent and then lose the assertiveness and the conviction of how it was written, which I think was perfect. And with the phrase now, you know, is historic. So I would stay there.
Thank you.
Courteously.
Karen, speaking on individualism, I think, by over defining these blanks, we're stomping on individualism. I think the original 1.1, keeping it big and allowing ourselves to have debates like this, instead of providing and locking ourselves into some sort of definition, would far better suit and serve libertarian principles. Thank you.
Ben Beckman, Allegheny County. My good friend Roy over here brought up non-libertarians earlier, and I just want to speak to that. I'm speaking in support of all this. This reads like I'm opening up a Murray Rothbard book. So, and if we're
awesome.
considering, yeah, I know. That's why I like it. If we're going to consider non-libertarians in any way, shape, or form, then we should be trying to teach them what we're about, not trying to cater to them, but cater to people who are already libertarians, so that the non-libertarians know what we're actually about. That's what that is. That's like exactly what we're about.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, actually, let's go ahead. I made a mistake, everybody. Here, this amendment was specifically for their interest.
Well,
Okay, no, this is my fault. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, we're gonna take about 6 steps back to G. And I'm going to roll that out of order and then suggest that she suggests that we vote this down, if that's what she wants, and then make an amendment substitution from that point. Because I made a parliamentarian mistake.
Would it help if I withdrew my amendment?
Time to get your photos.
Set on the body and then we go right to Gene's.
Go get photos.
Yes, do that with the consent of the body.
Seconded.
Donate to
We can- Does anybody have, let's do it this way, does anybody have an issue with Mr. Thomas withdrawing his motion to amend?
Nope.
I do.
November 2nd.
Oh.
All right, thank you. So
Yeah.
we will withdraw that motion. And then we will have Jean have her motion for plurality throughout the entire section of this, Okay, Jean, we had a second on that. We are now going to go ahead and into debate from there. So we're in debate on the entirety of this 1.1 being made plural.
I called question. I think we.
Still workshopping this.
Yes, let's go ahead and give it a moment, please.
I have another amendment coming after.
Oh,
What if it's?
no.
Tell you what I think, while she's workshopping, it's very simple. It'll save time.
Workshop it with you.
There's something to workshop, it's the thing I want to amend. But like, just to
Well,
save
I
time.
mean, we can't do anything about it.
Right, there's
We'd like
something
to
to do,
speak
to save time.
waiting.
Well, I guess just get that, yeah.
Yeah.
This would be coming after whatever happens with that vote, because it's not gonna, it's gonna be consequential to whatever the vote result is. Can we bring back up the,
Yep, sorry, just 1 second.
all right. Speaking on statements of conviction from the party principle, when we're saying a person who does not own their body, assuming it's the first one at the top,
Yeah.
completely is the slave of another to some degree.
Yeah.
I think we need to get rid of the words to some degree, and just say a person who does not own their body completely is the slave of another. End of story, because if it's to some degree, it's slavery in some form anyway. It's just redundant statement and more powerful without the last three words.
I'm fine with that.
Thank you. Okay. Workshop.
They're slave. Slave to another. This is.
Gene Stone first. Gene Stone first. Okay, excellent. The question has been called. Do I have said. And any objection to calling the question? All in favor of this amendment, please say aye.
Light slavery.
Aye.
All opposed.
Light slavery.
Passes. So Alison, you can sit. Alison Graham made a proposed amendment to remove the last
What degree of slavery is it?
two self-degree,
The last 3 words.
the last three words off
Could we also remove
1.1.
of another?
Is the slave, well, slave of another, I mean, slave implies its ownership of another.
Right, so.
Another, it's gonna have to be.
The person who's not in their body is a slave.
Yes,
It is a slave, it's clear, precise.
that's like.
I would leave it of another actually in this contextual form, but definitely get rid of the last three words.
Okay, one second. So is it the three words you want to get rid of? Three words. Okay, excellent. Do I have a second?
Just a second.
Second, a couple seconds. We have, Dave, go ahead.
Yes, I'm Dan from, Washington County, I'm free English. And I would, suggest removing the whole last sentence, especially because you're defining self-ownership. But the whole last sentence defines the exact opposite of self-ownership. Nowhere in the dictionary is anything defined by its exact opposite.
Okay, thank you. We actually just went through this with Gene. I'm going to rule that out of order for now. I would suggest that they vote it down and then bring that back up. Thank you. Any further debate on this? Oh, Maria?
If this really is to speak to people outside of the party, they might have a different vision of what a slave is in their mind. And so it might off-put people if they automatically compare it to the chattel slavery that was in the past. So I do worry that if you don't say to some degree, it'll be harder to communicate to people that have that distinction of what it is, and they haven't committed it in their mind yet, that it's all violations of self-ownership. So if it is meant for outside, I would take that into consideration.
Anybody else?
Yep. I appreciate it.
Whether or not this is in Benton, Allegheny County, whether or not this is in the planks or whatever, is not going to change how many non-libertarians are joining the party. Just gonna make that.
Exactly.
Thank you. Any further debate regarding this amendment?
Oh, God.
Hearing none, we'll go ahead and move to a vote. All in favor of this amendment, striking those three words to some degree from the end of this sentence, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Right.
TJ Grove, I would like to add section 1.7 for medical freedom.
We're gonna for now, we're working our way down. When TJ wants to get there, we will see it at that point in time. Is there any more amendments to section 1.1? I see you with your getting ready to come.
Yeah, I'll do it.
You go, Ben, you go, please,
1.1.
1.1.
So,
Yeah.
I'll amend it. So, way it reads right now, every person has exclusive control over their physical body. I would strike is the inalienable property which can only be rightfully owned by the person whose body it is. So just leave every person has exclusive control over their physical body and leave a person who does not own their body completely as a slave of another to some degree. So strike that whole second part of the first.
So you're looking to strike the second sentence.
No, strike the, what do you call it, second.
The second sentence of the first clause. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have an amendment to strike the second sentence of the first clause. Do I have a second? Okay, we do have a second.
This part.
No, the first, the second,
It is.
yeah,
Maybe rightfully owned.
whatever it's called. I'm not an English guy.
Second stanza.
This is a whole lot more.
And. Self, but the same.
While we're getting that squared away, thank you.
Yeah, it's something called it causes the other problems. We're in market, so.
All right, so while they're getting that, let's go ahead and any further debate until we have an objection or two. Alison, go ahead.
So, Beth, this is nice, some short. When my sixth grade grandfather described the Declaration of Independence with the word inalienable on it, I think we did. It's good enough.
Yeah, that's the whole thing.
Inalienable is part of the founding of our country and what this party is based on. So I believe we leave it there for Jefferson.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
I'm from John Thomas from Armstrong. I'm here to in favor of this amendment. If you own something, part of ownership implies the right to separate with it. If I own a house, I can sell my house. If I own my car, I can sell my car. If I own my body, then I ought to be able to sell my body. That means it is alienable. I can alienate myself from it to some degree. So if we own it, then we ought to be able to sell it, including selling ourselves into slavery. And I didn't recommend it.
Mr. C.
Yeah, with respect, there's a number of libertarian thinkers, Walter Block being one of them, that's the name who shall be named, but like there are a number of libertarian thinkers who would disagree with inalienable part. So we're alienating them by adopting this inalienable language. And the revenue carries a bunch of cronies, so I don't really want to hold the Declaration of Independence as stand.
I should have told you guys we were like 4 hours behind. He did go.
To echo what Mr. Thomas said, there are people that whips and chains do excite them and like.
All right. We're getting, guys, we're getting kind of into the weeds here. We'll go with Luke and Justin.
There's quite a bit more to talk about, and I think we've gone a lot more on this than I should have, so I call the question.
Thank you. Questions we call in a second. Okay, so all in favor of calling the question on the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Your question has been called. Thank you. So we will go ahead and move to a vote on the amendment, which is striking the second portion of the first sentence. I think where I really should have been with that. So we'll go with all in favor. Please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Passes. So it's 1.1. Mr. Bazak.
So once again, remove 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, and keep the initial 1.1. I don't understand what is, first of all, wrong with the initial 1.1 that we've had as part of our platform for 20 plus years. And what we're trying to fix with it to narrow us down into such a corner that's going to alienate other members or potential members or candidates. It just doesn't make sense to me. Perfectly happy with the initial 1.1. So I went to scrap all the new stuff and put 1.1, the original 1.1 back.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion in a second to, yes.
Can we get 1.1 back?
The original?
Yeah, that's struck down at the bottom.
Okay.
No, right here is the.
No, so you have 5%, so that's.
Struck fruit for
That, just so you know, see what we're talking about.
Okay. All right, we're gonna do this parliamentary correct, Mr. Pizzacco. With that, since we're doing this basically section by section, right? My advice to you would be to encourage this to be voted down and then institute 1.1 back into it after that.
Well,
That
if you vote this
It
down,
would automatically be put back in. So your since we broke it out the way we did, the proper procedure would be to attempt to vote it down and then have that.
But wasn't that the whole reason we were addressing these one at a time? So now we have to vote the entire document down?
Yeah, go.
No, it'll be that just one section.
The way seriation works is you go section by section, nothing is adopted.
Right.
Once section by section is done, the entire section is open to amendment. And then once all of the amendments are done, you vote on whether this section will replace 1.1. Encourage people to vote down the entire block, then 1.1 is automatically left in place. That's the way seriation works.
Right, so I'm striking 1.1 to 1.6.
You can't do that until
We get to the
paragraph by paragraph is done.
I thought we were taking all the ones in one section.
What? Yeah,
No.
yeah, that's what I thought. I'm confused as well, Mark.
It's going paragraph by paragraph to perfect them so that the best version.
And it's going to be paragraph by paragraph to get them
We
correct.
agree section by section.
Section by section.
Right, well, we have to get these done, we have to go paragraph by paragraph, then approve the section.
Yep.
So we are literally amending paragraph by paragraph, and then we go to approve.
So wait, we have to go through each of the 1 point whatevers, go through each of those, and then Mark should make his amendment to strike all of the 1 point whatevers.
He wouldn't
No,
need
he's
to
saying I have
write
to
them,
put
just-
the whole thing down.
Oh, Mark doesn't want to do that.
No, I just said I do it.
He just said it.
Well, that's what it takes, but I mean, like,
He literally just said it did, one go, we wanted to delete 1.1 through 1.6 and put 1.1 back in.
oh, by everything, I thought you meant the entire report.
Yeah, well, that's what you're telling, the whole report.
No, we broke it up, so this would be just for section 1. Keep both going down.
And it failed, so then it's a moot point.
So why don't you just call the
question for this, vote it down, and then
Then there'll be.
get rid of this section.
On the entire application.
Oh, we're not talking about the entire.
No, we're talking
Oh,
about.
yeah.
One section.
No, just the
Section one. No, I said the
application.
entire first section like 3 times. All right, so we good?
I'll bring up all the questions.
Okay,
1.1 or 1.1 to 1.6.
Section one. Paragraph.
okay, so if anybody else has any amendments from 1.2 to 1.6, I would suggest to object to calling the question. Is there anybody, we have a second to calling the question for this section?
Second.
Any objection? Okay. All those in favor of calling the question for the entire first section of the form, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes. Question has been called for that. Okay. So now this, is this a 2/3?
Oh, well, you know, but.
No, it's gonna be a big thing. It's very-
Then it would be,
Yeah.
no, because now you have to wait for the actual amendment.
This is just a point where it's adopted in the entire way. And then at the end, we're done. I think
He called the question on all.
No, it's because you told me that we had to finish section 1 before.
What, application of principle?
No, we're not there yet.
At the end.
Okay. I'm not sure what he's saying.
Okay.
The question was called.
Yes.
Was the question made a point of order? Did we call the question on section 1?
That's what we're trying.
That's-
Yes. I mean, the question is called passed on section 1.
So we're going to now vote whether we approve or disapprove section 1.
When you say section 1, referring to,
Can you guys scroll up
Yeah, the verdict.
1.1 through 1.6?
were you calling the question on 1.1?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. you said.
Yeah, that should be a 50%.
Yes, that would be.
You said, but you still have to adopt the whole body, so we're done.
No. From what I understand, the application of, let's use the titles, please.
Sorry.
If you move up to the top to the title. Yep. So there's a second one, which is 1.1 to 1.6.
That's what I'm,
That's the only part that was considered section by section. So if you call the question on that, it will take a 2/3 vote to adopt 1.1.
That's not what it's.
The entire amendment by sections. If there's one gigantic amendment, there's only one amendment here. So we're considering the entire amendment by Serie A. And so the section one is only one part of that.
We're not dividing libertarian principles, we're dividing the whole platform.
You want to sense what it was.
No.
No, it was a general consensus that we were going to be going by section except for two, which we'd be going by in section two. we'd be going by-
Right.
Yeah.
If these percent voting past each section, keep them in the document, and then when all that is done, we're gonna take a 2/3 and approve the entire document.
Principles that was going.
So he wanted the whole thing. That's why we discussed the two, how to get the two, because you wanted it by each header two, because you wanted to consider the whole thing.
And just use like a sort of right now.
There should be a majority. That doesn't mean
You
it's
want
not-
to see?
Right, and do the final.
Okay. Very good, thank you. So for that clarification, so what this is going to be, this is going to be a vote for the libertarian principle section of the platform. It is a majority vote. This is just to basically say good, and we move on to the next section. Okay? Everybody good with that? Anybody questioning? Yes.
So this is 1.1 all the way through 1.6.
Libertarian principle section of it, 1.1 through 1.6. This does require a majority vote. And then just keep in mind, there will be a 2/3 vote required at the end, once we're all done with this, in order to pass the platform itself.
To clarify, a yes vote is to adopt it, a no vote is to turn it down.
Correct.
Is this something I'm allowed to speak in favor of, or am I done speaking on this?
Well, you called the question, so, yeah, we're past that. Reese? You said something? You good?
I just needed to adopt, not to adopt, but to keep it in the.
Yes, to basically
You're
approve.
only adopting at the end.
Yes,
Okay, so we're approving this section. A yes vote approves this section as it's written. A no vote shoots it down.
to be put up for vote to adopt at the end
Okay.
of there. Okay, the question has been called.
Point of information,
Yes.
just want to make sure I completely understand. If the body votes no, does the original section 1.1 still stand? I'm seeing some yeses over there, but.
Yes. Correct.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, so I'm feeling we're gonna be pretty darn close to split, so I'm not gonna do a voice vote on this. I'm gonna do a vote. Okay, all in favor of approving this, not adopting, approving this libertarian principle section, please stand. Okay, please sit. And all those opposed? That passes. Thank you. Moving on, we're going to go into section 2, and we are going to be doing these amendments by header. Okay, so they will be broken up in each one, and here comes. Go ahead.
No, I'm waiting there. Are we gonna reserve this or take that speak? I'm sorry.
All right, so I'm first going to review with us all the section 2. So the first big section 2 is called application of principles, and it's divided into multiple headers. And we're gonna go header by header. The first header is called defense of liberty. Defense of liberty is the original 1.2, it is now 2.1. And it reads, the only legitimate use of force is in defense of individual rights, life, liberty, and justly acquired property against aggression. This right inheres in the individual who may agree to be aided by any other individual or group. We affirm the individual's right to keep and bear arms without being questioned as recognized by Article 1, Section 21 of the PA Constitution and also the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. We oppose all laws at any level of government requiring registration of or restricting the ownership, manufacture, transfer, or sale of firearms, ammunition, or any other tools of defense. The black text is all original text. the right strike through is the one change. We take out board and we move it later on, but we also add in any other tools of defense to the end of this plank. The second plank in defense of liberty is the original 1.7. It is 2.2 and it says, we uphold and defend the rights of every person, regardless of any aspect of their identity. And then it strikes out the including wealth, race, color, creed, age, national origin, personal habits, political preference, religious beliefs, sexual orientation, or gender identity. The reason for striking this was actually to make it more inclusive. We felt by enumerating a list, we ran the risk of someone saying, oh, so not blank. The idea was by eliminating the list, we can sort of just keep it open-ended and be like everything. And sort of let people sort of infer from that and not have to go, oh, what about this? What about this?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna go ahead and open the defense of liberty section up for debate. Mr. Pizzacco.
I don't actually have any opposition to it. I just want to point out that this section 2.1 contradicts section 1.3, where it states in 1.3, all acts of aggression are illegitimate and unjust, whether they're committed, blah, blah, blah. Last second, use of force is legitimate as defense against / retaliation for aggression. I don't see any spot in that section to allow retaliation for aggression. So says in just in self-defense 2.1, it doesn't allow for retaliation.
Noted, thank you. Mr. Thomas.
So I would, like us to amend it, so we uphold and defend the rights of every person regardless of any aspect of her or his identity.
So I believe that we just approved a plurality in the first one. So I don't think that removing the there is going to be well taken, but if you really want to make that amendment, I will take it to the floor.
Yeah, I would like to be grammatically correct.
We have a motion to amend from there to his or her. Do I have a second? Second? Anybody second?
I would second.
All right, we have a second. Any debate on this? Please go right through the vote.
What's that?
Then you're not, yeah, it's like, well, if you're fine with excluding it works in favor of the very.
I think you just leave out the word damn.
Yes.
I mean, that's like.
I guess we opened up the peace panel.
Yes, thank you.
So,
Mr. President.
Well, as long as we're having these debates and stuff, I would like to. This is John here. I think the proper English and politically correctness would be his, hers, or theirs. So I can debate this nonsense all day.
Yeah, I would rather not. I would much rather. Well, would you?
I don't see how we go to his and hers and not theirs.
Listen, I don't disagree, but let's go ahead. Wait to call the question. Thank you. Question's been called. Any objection to calling the question? Can you get a second first, second to calling the question? Second. Thank you. Any objections?
so you're just gonna. Okay.
You,
You're gonna leave the pronoun in there. When you could just leave the pronoun.
yeah, so you did not make a motion. You gave me a statement. Okay. So there's not a whole lot I can do with that unless you actually make an actual motion to amend that. I understand your point completely. But we have a question being called. All in favor of the question being called? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Question has been called. All in favor of removing there and putting in his or her in its stead, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Fails. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Drosy.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to remove the word air from that. from section 2.2. So it would now read, defend the rights of every regardless of any aspect of identity.
Yes.
Thank you. We have a motion to amend. There we go. Word there. Out of this.
I like that, Tony.
Last sentence. Do I have a second? Second. All right, we need debate regarding this.
No.
No.
Call question. All right. We don't need to call a question if we're doing any word debate. So let's go ahead. And all in favor of removing the word there, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Let's go.
Another sacred cow, legislature.
Can we see the first part of this?
Yes. Whenever one of you get a second, pull up 2.1, please. Guys, I know we did great this morning. We're out driving through school.
Yeah, we never get to you. Look. Ends up bigger.
For admission and
Somewhere.
delete the last part or any of the tools in defense.
Okay, thank you. So the motion is to retain the word or in front of ammunition and remove or any other tools of defense. Is that correct?
Can I speak to that?
Yes, absolutely.
One of the criticisms I've heard when we get too broadly supportive of the Second Amendment is that we are going to advocate for the private ownership of nuclear weapons.
Yes. Yes.
Too broad for my case.
I want my F-15.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Thank you. We have a second. We have debate.
I just want to say, I think this is not a necessary amendment because nukes are not a weapon of defense. They are a weapon of offense. I don't think it's possible to put it defend yourself. It destroys millions of people all at once. Unless you are somehow being attacked by a horde of millions of people contained within the size limitation.
Zombie apocalypse.
That nukes to be used as a defensive weapon, and therefore this language does not cover nukes. Keep it in.
We are attacked.
Thank you. Mr. Evans.
Yes, to be clear, the reason why made the change that Mr. Howard wants to reverse here, because there are more tools of defense that exist in the world than just firearms and ammunition, and we should be clear that we are in favor of them, and we are in favor of private citizens having capability to defend themselves with tools on the level of government.
Thank you. Do we have any further debate on this? All right, excellent. All right. So we can scroll, yeah, there we are, pretty good. So all in favor of re-adding the word or from ammunition and removing or any other tools of defense. You're in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Fails, thank you. Okay, do we have any other amendments for this particular heading, this section? Can we go to a vote on this section? Keep going. Roger. Okay, let's go. Scroll on down to freedom of thought and expression. Mr. Smith.
Okay, our next heading in section 2 is titled Freedom of Thought and Expression. We have 2.3. This is the original 1.3. Hey, guys. Okay. So, point 2.3 is the original 1.3, and it says, we support full freedom of expression and oppose all government censorship, regulation, or control of communications, media, and technology. We support the freedom to engage in or abstain from any forms of expression and, again, forms of expression that do not violate the rights of others. We struck religious activities and added in forms of expression in order to make it more broad and encompassing. And because we also did that, the next line that said we oppose government action to either aid or attack any religion we struck that again because we struck the previous reference to any religious activity in favor of more broader forms of expression. So Plank continues, our support of an individual's right to make choices in life does not mean approval of those choices. Originally I said that we necessarily approve or disapprove of any of these choices. We felt that this was just more clear and concise. And then there is, we make Plank 2.4. Parents or legal guardians have the right to raise their children according to their own standards and beliefs, provided the child's rights are not violated. You see this in black. This is from another plank. I unfortunately forget exactly what other plank it is, but it's not just the entirety of one plank. It is a portion taken from one plank. In the original Google Docs that we have a comment that says what plank it was moved from, but because we had to convert it to a docx form for this to be editable, and not have to rely on the internet, we don't have that comment. But this is from another one of the original planks. If someone had that readily available to tell me, that would be nice. But this is not New Link. This is from another plank. I just quite can't recall which one it is.
Thank you. So as we're standing up and getting to the microphone, okay, I'm going to ask for a little bit of decorum, and then let's try to be a little bit more expedient this time, because we don't want to get bogged down. We're only in our third, basically, section of this, and we've been going at it for a little over an hour. And so we don't want to spend the rest of the convention doing this. We do have some other things to take care of. So we'll go to Mr. Severs first.
Yeah, I moved, Amy Seaver, Armstrong County, I moved to strike the portion of 2.4 that says, provided the children's rights are not violated. And this is because it's an ambiguous term that is used to justify all kinds of interventions to parenting decisions by the state and even other libertarians. Like you have people like Chase Oliver, who during his campaign stated that, a child can even sue their parents for the way that the parents decided to raise them. The parent has leniency in the way that they raise their children, and it can often be used by some libertarians to justify intervention, legal intervention, suing, and so on. So I think it's an ambiguous term, and it makes a judgment on things that libertarians themselves don't agree on. That is the status of children in a libertarian society.
And thank you. So your motion was to remove the words provided the children's rights are not violated from section 2.4.
Yes.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. We have debate regarding this amendment. Oh, we have a couple people. He's going to remove the after the comma, provided the children's rights are not violated. Provided the children's rights are not violated. So we will go, Mr. Enzer first.
Yeah, I would be opposed to this, even if we may not agree on what is specifically referenced by that. We do agree that children do have rights, and there are ways in which parents can violate their children's rights, and we should include the caveat that we do not carte blanche approve of parents abusing their children under the guise of just raising them according to their own standards and beliefs. We do support that for the most part, but we don't support outright abuse.
Thank you.
I think it's important to keep it.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else who'd like to speak on this amendment? Eat your hand was, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, I think someone's going.
Good, I went.
Now, I don't agree with what I'm about to say, but I can tell you that from others and gotten into an argument with them. There are people out there who are atheists and insist that any raising of a child in religion is child abuse. So if we're going to take a vague wording, provided the children's rights are not violated,
Right.
you are opening yourself up to that kind of an argument against us. So I think that's a proviso that should go without saying, just strike it from the sentence.
Thank you. Do I have anybody else who'd like to speak regarding this particular amendment? Benny, you coming back up? Mr. Severs, you coming back up with that? Mr. Rosso? We'll let John go first.
Yeah.
Here.
John Rosso, Public County. I'm speaking in favor. You're striking that. Here's the reason why. I'm a parent of three. We homeschool our children, so very, dear to many of our hearts. The flavor and the purpose of this 2.4 is in that first part of the sentence. That is what we're stating as libertarians to the outside world. as in opposition to other ideas about who may or may not have rights over how we raise our children. So those are the ideas that we are in opposition of, and we're making a bold statement that we are in opposition of those ideas. That it is black and white, that we, not the government, not some other entity, not our schools, not the government schools that so many feel that their children are forced to be in because they don't have other options. They don't make those decisions. And we've seen very recently, we all know, which is why so many of us are active now in politics again, how quickly that can turn and how quickly our kids can be under threat to the point of potential life threat from these other entities if we don't make that very bold distinction. The problem with the part that we want to cross out here is that it adds gray, as was stated, to that bold statement. So what we're communicating to the outside world is communicated from parents to beliefs. And that is the purpose of 2.4. If we add in that second part, which was has been stated by a couple other people, that does provide the grayness that is what those in opposition of that belief have used as leverage to get into and pry away children from their parents and pry away the right that the parents have that is expressed in 2.4 from parents to belief. And so for that reason, I stand firmly in approval of this motion. Thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself, but again, private property is already been acknowledged as a right in the platform. Adding this adds redundancy, that's all I'll say.
Thank you. Anybody else about this amendment?
Some of it is just coming from the fact that it's the child's rights that are being violated. That's what's not defined, but if instead it was defined as aggression against the child, that as long as aggression has not been applied to the child, it might solve the problem in general.
What are you calling aggression?
We could say physical aggression, right? You can define that as physical aggression.
Can you spank your kids?
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Any other debate regarding this? We move to a vote. All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move to a vote. All in favor of removing the provided that the children's rights are not violated from section 2.4, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
That passes. Okay, an additional amendment will go to Mr. DeRazio, then we'll go to.
Tony Garcia, Fairfield County. Sorry, I keep forgetting to introduce myself. I would like to move to amend section 2.3 to restore the statement, we oppose government actions which either aid or attack any religion. And if we get a second, I'd like to speak to my amendment.
Thank you. A second. Thank you. We do have a second. And that would be, Mr. Secretary, we oppose the government actions, right?
Correct.
Correct. Can you scroll down a little bit, please? The red and crossed out first portion of that. We oppose government actions which either aid or attack any religion. If we do have a second, Mr. DeRazio, go ahead and please speak to your.
Yes, we are in an era where I think that no matter what your religion or lack thereof is, which you feel like you're under attack, either by the government or by others. And for us to, in this time of strong, and sometimes faith-based turmoil and division, to not stand specifically opposed to government actions which either aid or attack any religion, which, by the way, this current administration is done, would be a real disservice to the party. We need to stand in opposition to government actions against and that or against any religion, maintaining our First Amendment right to freedom of religion or life.
Thank you. And to your point, every administration has done.
Yeah, no, you're
Absolutely.
You're absolutely.
Let's go ahead and anybody else like to speak to this amendment?
Whereas Greg Ben from Bucks County, I actually am approaching the microphone to make a kind of similar amendment proposal, but maybe in a different. I would speak in favor of having some language in here that does support religion. My perspective on that is as a Christian libertarian who belongs to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I can say that my religion has actually had an extermination order by part of the United States government in the past. We've had a history of being at war with the United States of America. We did not lose, we didn't exactly win, but we're still here. But my point is that there are minority religious groups. I also think about a lot of my Jewish friends, where I think that it's important for us to have a statement of principles that encompasses and points out that we also support individual religious groups.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens.
I'd like to speak in opposition to this amendment. The government's property is not its own. It is private property stolen from the people. To impose this restriction on it, to impose a restriction that it cannot aid religion is imposing a restriction on private property. Private property should be directed to either the aid of religion, or if someone who doesn't want to be in favor of religion, it can be secular. Private property can be disposed to secular purposes. The state is a steward of private property. It is not the owner. Why are we imposing this arbitrary restriction to oppose or aid religion? If it's the will of the taxpayers, the people who have been expropriated from in any particular region, it should be disposed to either a secular or religious purpose. It's not the judgment of the state. There's no, why are we imposing this arbitrary rule? I understand it could be used to protect people, but it is imposing a restriction on private property and this is disposal of it.
Thank you. And Mr. Cozy?
I am speaking in support of this. I mean, what, if we don't put these kind of protections in, as someone who has half their family of Jewish descent, there was a government that did decide, hey, we don't like Jews and we're gonna mass murder. So I do think we need this language in there. It was in the original variation thereof, and I support this. And then I'd like to call the question.
All right, thank you. Question has been called by a second.
Second.
Second, we have a second. Anybody in opposition to calling the questions? Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The question has been called. Okay, so we're going to go into here. All in favor of removing, of re-adding the sentence, we oppose government actions which either aid or attack any religion. So if you are in favor of putting that back into this section, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
I think that passed.
Yeah.
Okay. So we go ahead and have that back in. Mr. Benjamin.
Right back to Bucks County. I would like to make a motion to amend. And I don't want to go faster than raise it. Just let me know when you're ready for my motion is prepared.
Aid the religion part, but not religion. I think they're both equal. Maybe that's probably right.
Or of course, the chair would prefer I can say this and I can go over there to share.
That's fine. They're just doing some back end work and we're actually already through that. So let's go ahead and, okay, let's see your motion.
So in 2.3, after you see the red strikeout for religious activities and then forms of expression, my motion would be after forms of expression, for it to read, including peaceable religious activities and worship.
Okay, so including peaceful
religious activities and worship.
religious activities and worship, right? Thank you. Please go ahead and step on over there, make sure that they have what they need. Let's get a second on that.
Second.
Second, you have a second, okay. Mr. Betchman, would you like to speak to that, or do you think you already have?
I would.
Okay, you can hand that off to them and then they'll get pretty close to done.
So my intent with this, I actually wrote before Mr. Sorry, you have the ultimate. I'll make sure I'm pronouncing it correct because I have no common last name. Is just again, just to be able to have like a little bit of covering free religious expression. A thing that I have very much in mind was that very close to us on the Bucks County side of the state, New Jersey during the lockdowns was going and shutting down religious funerals, specifically with Jewish congregations that were deceded, and they have
strict, very, very tight rules on how they're supposed to have these funerals with timelines and things. It would actually also apply to Muslim groups and to many other religious groups. So with that in mind, that's the spirit of which that I want to see kind of some language that kind of covers that, but also making sure that we have peaceable religious activities in there to make sure that there's no conflicts with libertarian ideals also. Thank you. Do we have any further debate on this? Mr. Reinhardt.
I guess I'm somewhat confused because we spent a lot of time removing other ideas from other things. And now we're putting them back in. And it seems like we're just adding back in the things that we removed selectively. Right? It's like, I feel like that's somewhat of an issue with this entire addition that's happened so far and even voted on. And you know, if that's what the body wants to do, okay. But it does feel against the principle of trying to remove those identity traits as being the things you care about at all.
Thank you. Any further debate? All right, hearing none, we will go ahead and move to a vote. All in favor? Adding, including peaceful religious activities and worship to this particular section of the platform, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Do you have any further amendments for this particular header section? Are you sure? Oh, here we go.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I just have a question. Does that make the other sentence that we voted to put back redundant? Like, it seems like it's
You would have.
very verbose.
Good. So, I mean, that is up to interpretation. If you feel that it is, then you would need to make a motion to remove something. So, which I don't think that you're gonna get passed. So if you would like.
Yeah, I would like to make the motion in lieu of that last adjustment that we remove that.
Yeah, that would be a motion to reconsider. Now, did you vote for it or against it?
I voted for it. Now I think it's redundant.
So, okay, so you originally voted for it. Now you are motioning to reconsider. This is my first reconsideration. Hold on one second. I'm sorry.
Okay. Instead of it's Tony's fault, it's Joe's fault.
Sorry.
Or Jello is the worst kind, but it's not real Jello. It's I mean.
All right, so that's debating process at least 2 minutes. Okay, it's debatable, so let's go ahead and debate this. Go ahead. I think we're saying the same thing twice in a row, and that looks kind of silly, and I just think we don't need to say it twice. Okay, thank you. So we have a further debate regarding this. Okay, so what's going to happen if we vote to reconsider, if we pass? You are reconsidering the we oppose government action.
That's correct. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right, right there. We oppose government actions which either aid or attack any religion. Correct. That's the one. Okay. Very good. So
That was
if you vote,
then we voted to add the other.
if the body votes to reconsider, basically this comes back up, this amendment comes back up onto the table for debate to be voted on again. Okay, so all in favor of reconsidering this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It fails. Thank you for wasting my time. Okay. So we have any other amendments for this particular area?
Just this header, right?
Thank you. So let's go ahead and move into our freedom of association.
Yeah.
Mr. Smith?
All right, our next, sort of section, no, heading under section 2 is freedom of association. We start off with a new plank 2.5. We support freedom of association as integral to individual rights. A free society demands all individuals be able to voluntarily associate with or dissociate from anyone for any reason. We oppose all forms of segregation and anti-discrimination laws. Then we go on to 2.6, which is the original 1.5, and it says what the amendment says is any arrangement between consenting adults which does not involve force or fraud must be free from government interference. The original was any sexual arrangement between consenting adults must be free from government interference. We also took out the line, individuals have the right to do what they wish with their bodies as long as they are not overstaying, thank you, or harming others. It continues, criminalizing voluntary nonviolent behavior has unintended consequences and often harms those it was intended to aid. We then also strike out the line, consenting sex workers are not victims of human trafficking. The rationale behind this plank right here was that this plank had a lot of good language about, voluntary arrangements between adults. And so we wanted to keep the bulk of it, but we wanted to make it even broader. Before it basically singularly addressed the topic of sex work, and our idea was to make it broader and encompass all voluntary interactions. Additionally, we make a new plank, well, not a new plank, there's plank 2.7, which is government has no power to define or license social institutions such as marriage or to impose any restrictions thereon. This is not a new language, as you see it's in black. This is taken from a old plank as well and placed here. We thought it was a better order with better flow. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we get into our amendments, I appreciate that. Give you guys a heads up. We got about 20 minutes. We do have a Toastmasters meeting at 5 p.m. So we will be running up against it. So let's just keep that in mind as we get rolling. Mr. Cousin.
So I would only wish to amend section 2.61.5, I guess.
2.6, correct. The 1.5 is scratched out.
2.6, sorry.
Yes.
The only thing I would like to see, the consenting sex workers are not victims of human trafficking, added back in.
Okay, so you have a motion to retain the words consenting sex workers are not victims of human trafficking.
Sure.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Do we have debate regarding this particular amendment? Mr. Nancy?
Yeah, the whole point is to make the language broader, to refer to all consenting arrangements. Then adding that back in would be rather out of the blue, like very specific highlighting of this specific issue, and it doesn't fit, and it highlights some and gives emphasis to something that I don't think is necessary.
Thank you.
I'll speak to it.
Please go ahead.
I just think that if we don't specify this one section, the government and state has already shown that they're willing to attack sex workers at every avenue. You have women and men that have voluntarily agreed to sell their bodies, that if they shot it in front of a camera, it's completely legal. But the moment they don't have a camera there, go into prison for selling their body. It's their body. We just went over previous principles, platforms about how you own your body. So if I want to sell myself and people are willing to pay, which more people would probably pay not to have sex with me, and keep my clothes on, but that's my right. And so I think that we do need to have those protections in there. I mean, it's always been a matter of the Libertarian Party. That's been in the principles of African.
Thank you, Mr. Heckman.
Heckman, Allegheny County. So the last sentence there, the consenting sex workers are not victims of human trafficking, is creating a false binary. Consenting sex workers can be and have been victims of sex
Well,
trafficking.
they wouldn't be consenting if they're human trafficked.
That doesn't exclude them from being trafficked. They might be consenting to something else and also being trafficked. It's awesome. Without knowing, I just think that's
Okay, all right, Chris, just again, keep in mind, let's not dig too far into these here.
Yeah, I would like to,
I think that's.
speak against, that we just simply, keep in mind, the purpose of this is not a general libertarian debate, but rather a public statement positioning. And I think that broadening it is better because this statement includes things like free use of drugs among whoever wishes to smoke weed, and we don't want to be in the middle of that either. So I think just keeping it out is cleaner and rather than actually focusing just on this bond. It's branding, folks.
So I just want to add, one of the reasons why this statement is very broad is because people who are victims of crimes such as those categories within trafficking, often engage in activities that give appearance of consenting behavior, which is why we should avoid saying this as a word in those.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
According to the, Google Dictionary, the term traffic, means to deal or trade in something illegal. And that's such a vague term anyways. I just think that not using that term in our Bible or in our, would be a good, it would be, just be a good term. So that, I would keep that struck out.
Thank you, Mr. Bissell. Thank you. All in favor of calling the question, please say aye. All opposed? Thank you. All in favor of retaining the sentence, consenting sex workers are not victims of human trafficking, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That fits. Okay, do we have any other amendments for this particular head section? No? Okay. Friends, I think that one took us like 4 minutes, so, I'm impressed. Still 6 hours behind. This is going to be the voluntary exchange portion. So, Mr. Smith, whenever you're ready.
Okay, our next header is called voluntary exchange. This is one of the longer headers, so please bear with me as we work through this. Okay, so first off, we start off with a new platform plank 2.8. It says, we support full separation of economy and state. Governments must not regulate, restrict, or prohibit voluntary exchange. We oppose all forms of economic lockdowns as egregious violations of individual rights in voluntary exchange. Then we move into plank 2.9, which was the original 3.7, and we add various language to it. No government should operate, subsidize, license, or collaborate with any other business, and this is crony statism or corporatism. The use of corporatist institutions restrict the rights of individuals under the guise of private companies can do what they want is as much an act of aggression as overtly statist institutions doing the same. Then we move into plank 2.10, which is originally 2.1. And it says, we want all members of society to have opportunities to achieve economic success. A competitive free market economy allocates resources in the most efficient manner, which provides the most wealth and best satisfies everyone's wants. Any person or group has the right to offer goods and services to others on the free market. We oppose all mandates on or controls on wages, prices, rents, profits, production, and interest rates. Competing currencies must not be prohibited. We strike the language, there must be no government laws regarding prevailing wages or arbitrary and capricious alcoholic beverage control. The only proper role of government in the economic realm is to protect property rights, adjudicate disputes, and provide a legal framework within which voluntary trade is protected. So a couple of notes on this. The section, the sentence, there must be no government law regarding prevailing wages. That is sort of covered above when we talk about they shouldn't mandate wages. Right above, we say we oppose all mandates on controls or wages, so that was duplicative. As for the arbitrary and capricious alcoholic beverage controls, that is clearly a call out to the Pennsylvania Control Board, which if we get to the end of this, we'll see in the Pennsylvania specific section, we add a plank basically denouncing the Liquor Control Board. So that became duplicative through that. And then the only proper role of government in the economic realm is to protect property rights, adjudicate disputes, and provide a legal framework within which voluntary is protected. We felt there were some issues here with following the Dallas Accord, and so we thought it would be cleaner just to take it out and that other language was sufficient. Then moving on to plank 2.11, which was originally plank 2.6, we say labor markets must be open and free. We just took out the also, we thought it was unnecessary language. Then we add, then we continue. Terms of employment must always be voluntarily negotiable between employees and employers. And then we struck including wages, overtime, working conditions, and all benefits because there was no need to list it. It's all covered when we say everything, all in terms of employment must be negotiable. Then we say employers must be free to decide whether or not union membership is a condition or disqualification for employment. We added the qualifier for disqualification as well. Then we have plank 2.12, sorry, which is just 2.7, and we literally changed nothing in it. And it says, we oppose occupational licensing and advocate that professional communities be free to establish their own standards. Then we have section plank 2.13, which is the original plank 2.5. And it says, we call for the repeal of laws regulating the physical requirements of buildings and equipment. And we crossed off the sentence, especially for medical facilities where smaller practices may be shut down for medically unnecessary reasons. Just because we wanted just to keep it more broad and limiting. And we felt we have a healthcare plank later on, plank 2.19. And we felt that that was sort of better suited over there. So we just took that out. So we have a whole healthcare header later.
All right, thank you. So at this point, again, just keep in mind we are looking at 10 minutes until recess for tomorrow. So let's go ahead and get into any amendments.
Zach or Lancaster, can you scroll up to the components? Yeah, it's the top one. I'd like to see the support full separation from that statement. I just think completely not having these things together. You're basically saying that state won't participate in the economy, right? All. Yep. I know. So
That's sorry.
just the first sentence, because I think what we're actually talking about here is covered by the rest of that. Essentially, I want to make sure that anyone who is providing, work in any capacity gets paid. So even if they are government workers, I'd like them to. Okay, so let me just clear, your motion is to remove the words, we support full separation of economy and state from section 2.8. Yes, correct. All right, perfect. Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. You do have a second. You just want to be more on number two.
Yeah, I know I jumped the gun a little bit, but that's basically it. I think that is a statement that there's too much gray area around it. And what we're actually talking about is regulations, and that's covered in the following sentences.
All right, thank you very much. Any other debate regarding this particular sentence? Coming up.
Yeah, so the reason this was included was it's often referenced separation of church and state as a way to protect the religious freedom. So we included this as a way to clearly and very explicitly and concisely, at least in the first sentence, say, this is what our ideal is. We want to separate the state from the economy. And that very concisely states, we don't support any subsidies, regulations, any kind of distortions whatsoever in the economy, similar to how the separation of church and state says no interventions dealing with religion.
Thank you. Any other debate regarding this?
Yeah, may I propose a amendment with the amendment?
that
Sure.
rather than we strike that whole, why don't we just rephrase it as we support separation of the county and state from the word full?
Okay, so,
I'd accept that.
so there's an amendment to the amendment, which would be, we support.
Just removing the word full, simply the word full, keeping the rest of the state
Separation of economy and state. Do I have a second?
Second.
Very good. So we're debating the amendment to the amendment at this point. So any debate regarding that?
Yes, I fully support striking the entire thing, because there's no instance of government making the economy better. Everything the government touches, turns to ash. So a full separate economy and state.
Okay, so you don't support the amendment to the amendment. Thank you. Anybody else with this one? Okay, go ahead. We'll go ahead and we will go ahead and vote on the amendment to the amendment. Okay, which is just getting rid of the word full, right?
Simply amending the statement to say we support the full separation of economy and state. So removing only the word full.
Okay, so only removing the word full. All in favor of only removing the word full. This is an amendment to the amendment, folks. Only removing the word full, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Thank you. So now that is going to become our amendment. Okay, and it's still up to strike it in its entirety. Okay, so now we are back to the amendment, which is now we support full separation. We support separation of economy and state. I apologize. Thank you.
I don't know what this would be, but it's, if we support the separation, like, it sounds weird. We support the separation, I guess I've already separated in here.
Well, if we're going to get rid of it, then it doesn't really matter, but if we're going to.
Okay, I don't know what's going on.
Okay. We're done with that. You're half step ahead of yourself, Bennett. All right, so any other debate regarding the we support separation of economy and state? Okay, so all in favor of removing we support separation of economy and state from this document, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That fails. So currently as it stands, this now says we support separation of economy and state. Governments must not regulate, restrict, or prohibit voluntary exchange. So on, so forth. All right.
I have the phrase, second sentence, we oppose all forms of economic lockdowns as egregious. I would like to replace the word lockdown with interference.
Okay, so we have an amendment to strike the word lockdowns from the second paragraph and add the word interference.
Mr. Chair. Just to be clear, we voted to not adopt the amendment striking full, correct?
Correct. No, we full is gone.
Oh, full is gone.
We voted to not strike, we support.
What you talking about?
Right.
That makes sense.
Correct?
Full-
Yes. Separation of economy and state. We're good. No, just the ordinance. Yeah, just the ordinance was gone. So we're back to remove lockdowns and put in, I'm sorry, again, interference.
Happy to speak to that.
All right, what are?
As soon as we get rock and roll in here.
Right, no, two strikes.
Lockdowns is getting removed, interference is getting put in.
On what?
Second paragraph.
Lockdown.
This was something.
Okay.
Yes, this is the motion to amend, removing the word lockdowns and putting in the word interference. Do I have a second on that? Do I get a second on that? Anybody? Second, do you have a second? Mr. Arnold, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that lockdowns obviously are crap and why not have them, but I think general interference, just because it's not a lockdown, doesn't mean a bunch of regulators, bureaucrats and companies interjecting themselves and interfering in another form of, partial lockdown, so.
It's a little rough.
She wants to make a motion.
Right, thank you. Broad as possible. Thank you, Mayor.
It's just right.
Krawchuk.
Mr. Chair, right now we have 5 local members of Toastmasters International next door, already ready to go.
Yep.
So we're about 3 minutes before the orders of the day show up. So I would move right now, call the question on all outstanding questions, just out of courtesy to the people who come to stage our Toastmaster meeting. And I invite you all to come by next door. It's gonna be a blast. Guy's gonna be giving a humorous speech. We're gonna do all kinds of Toastmastery things. And I call all the questions.
Do you mean on adoption of these and everything as well?
Yeah, that was. I'll call the question. But in another 2 minutes, I'll call orders of the day.
So are you calling all questions, which includes
All questions.
Personal privilege. Okay, we have more business tomorrow. We could just call orders of the day and shut this meeting down and and keep working.
Yep.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
There's no reason to follow up. But
Okay, yeah, so we'll call questions and leave it orders of the day. Let's go next door and do the Toastmasters.
Orders of the day, we are at 5 PM. And that is in that area, so we are at that time. So with that being said, we will recess until 9 AM. Adjourned. We will adjourn until 9 AM.
Guys, just an announcement for dinner, just a reminder, because it's gonna immediately follow and we're all still in the room here. I don't know if anybody didn't collect their things first. Go see Reese if you paid for the buffet dinner, so you have the wristband. The dinner is buffet, but it's only for individuals that buy the ticket, and you should have the wristband for it. So it's gonna get set up probably really generally, but just be aware when that's for. Alright, thanks.
Yeah.
just to find some examples.
No, but I have it in my system.
Okay, so here. I don't even know how to stat on say. Okay. I just like I actually started myself. Right, so I'll read Alison and guys who choose. So ownership means I'm ready. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Next time it's Thursday.
Okay. I